This is Nikki, the therapist. Welcome back to my channel where we discuss children's mental health, childhood trauma, acculturation stress within immigrant communities, effective behavior management strategies, and an insight into my perspective as a school-based therapist. When we work with children, a lot of times, we are working with the child alone, but we're also working with their family and we're providing the same psychoeducation to the family as well. And throughout just the course of my work, here, I've compiled a list of probably the top 5 things that I find myself telling parents a lot as a child and adolescent therapist. Children are not developmentally equipped to grasp abstract thoughts or nuances within the language that we speak. They comprehend things in a very literal way. When you talk about your child and their behaviors, try to avoid using phrases like, Johnny was bad today, or Susie's nothing but trouble. When adults phrase their concerns like this, they're often talking about Johnny or Susie, for instance, not following instructions in the classroom, talking back to adults, disrupting class. They're discussing their behavior. But a child who does not have the ability to interpret nuances within a language and understand things in a very literal way, that kind of phrasing can be perceived as kind of like a permanent indication to their character as bad and trouble. We got to be really careful and rephrase our message in a way that it just talks about the behavior specifically, such as Johnny had a hard time making good choices today, or Susie was, talking back when I was talking. She was walking around during carpet time and she was distracting other students. These words and the way our messaging often becomes the internal voice of that child when they become an adolescent or an adult. This is why it is so important that we are mindful of the words and the phrasing that we use when we speak to children. This one is actually one of my biggest pet peeves because I do get this a lot. We often have parents, when they're bringing their kids to get therapy, they come in with the expectation that their child is the problem. They have a lot of these problem behaviors, and therefore their behaviors need to be fixed. We as therapists got to kind of like pull back a little bit and we got to reframe that thought. Because starting therapy with that kind of mindset is unhelpful and damaging to the therapeutic process overall. While children are born with certain temperaments from when they're really young, it is not a full indication of their personality because your personality is a work in progress during childhood and adolescence and is actually developed when you're an adult. Children learn by absorbing information, by being exposed to the adults' messaging, and they model the behaviors of those around them. Because they get so much of their behavioral influences from the environment, when we work with children, we also work with families and school systems. We implement an interdisciplinary approach to their treatment so that we can all help come up with one solution that can work across the board to help alleviate the mental distress in the child. A lot of time when we talk about being in a safe space, a lot of us think about physical safety and the measures that are put in place, like buzzing into a building, locking doors and windows, having a security guard, front desk staff. These are all measures of physical security. All of that is very, very important. But we also need to highlight a different kind of safety, which we call emotional safety. That basically refers to being able to trust the people within a space, to be able to express your true, authentic self, who you really are, without being worried about judgment, shame, guilt, or retaliation. As a therapist, when I meet with clients for the first time, that is one of the very first goals that I have is to help the client feel emotionally and physically safe within my office space. A lot of times we use different games and strategies. I provide a lot of explanation about what therapy is, what we do here, and I ensure confidentiality, obviously within the limits of confidentiality as well. But I tell them, I reassure them that, what you share is confidential. What does that mean? Well, what are the limitations? And with that, all of that helps us establish rapport, which actually establishes their safety. And then throughout time, sometimes along with individual therapy, we need to do family therapy. And then what will happen is a lot of times children will often express hesitancy in participating in family sessions because they worry that if they express their true feelings or disagree with their parents, it's going to result in retaliation from their family after the therapy session, or that they're going to be invalidated. This is something that I address with a child before the session, and I also address with the parents, and I make it very crystal clear to parents that children are specifically allowed to have a safe space in therapy to discuss their feelings and concerns without worrying about retaliation. When we invalidate clients' experience and feelings during a session or after the session, that can often be a contributing factor in the tenuous relationship between a child and a parent. We address those factors in family session, and we usually provide strategies to help parents learn ways to express validation of their child's experiences and feelings, to be able to provide the same emotional safety at home that is provided in the therapy space. See and observe everything around them. They're sponges and they're constantly learning and getting data from their environment through direct and indirect communication. Adults often try to hide discussions of certain topics within the family, what people call in layman's terms dirty laundry. From my experience, I can tell you more likely than not, whatever the family is trying to hide, um, most of the time the child already knows something about it. Oftentimes, like when parents are telling their kids to go to your room and then they start discussing a heavy topic, the child knows that they're being sent to the room because something is being discussed. And a lot of times children are not sitting in their room minding their own business. A lot of times they're eavesdropping, especially if they know a little bit about what's going on, if they have questions that are unanswered. And, all of that, is basically the reason that a lot of kids, even when you're trying to hide something from them, because they see everything, they even see the facial expressions that you make that you think the child does not get, but then because you don't know what they're exposed to and what they're not, what they heard, what they didn't hear, they're putting pieces of everything together that they see. So children, especially when we try to hide things from them, more often than not, they know a little bit of what's going on. And all of this brings me to the last point that I really want to share, which is that, you know, don't shy away from having the tough conversations that are important. You know, while children should not be exposed to many things that adults discuss because it's adult business and much of the dirty laundry that families have, it's just not necessary for kids to know. If something that is going on is highly prevalent in a child's life, discussed on a daily basis, and is going to directly affect them, having those tough conversations becomes necessary. It's important to have these conversations in a developmentally appropriate way, mainly with the goal that it does not put blame on them. We know that if a topic is discussed in a family often enough, the child is exposed to it and they hear it. Children are imaginative, and adolescents develop the ability to connect their own perceptions and the tidbits of information that they get, and they provide a reasoning for themselves that makes sense to them. Therefore, it is so important to provide them with an explanation that is age appropriate for them, so that they don't come up with their own reasons with a little bit of tidbits of information that they get. Because a lot of times that reasoning is self-blaming and self-shaming and is not helpful. And there are many ways to share information with children in developmentally appropriate ways. One of the best ways that I do is I use children's books. Children's books are a great way to provide that information, that education to kids about a certain difficult topic without them feeling like they're being put on the spot. Because kids are imaginative, they receive information so much better through storytelling, like hearing someone else's story. And also, stories help children feel validated in their experience and challenges. Hope that you parents, teachers, and anyone watching found this information really helpful about some of the things that I tell families during sessions with clients. And thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on children's mental health, childhood trauma, acculturation, stress in immigrant communities, and effective strategies to help children through mental health challenges at school and at home. I will see you guys next time.